Hey everybody, today we're gonna take a look at how we can model some wall panels. Now this might sound a bit like a weird request, but I actually got this from a guy I know that he had a problem with how would he go about and model some wall panels. Now when I say wall panels, this is basically what I mean. Let me just open the images. Let's see. It's basically something like this. Let me just scroll it over here. There we go. So basically something like this. And then how would he model a mold like this? And then something different, like maybe like this one. And then how would he go about modeling something like this? So needless to say, he had different kinds of walls he wanted to make, but didn't know where to start. And this is another example of how intricate these wall panels can be. And here's another one I got from Google. So you can see different shapes and sizes here. So let me close this. Let me turn this on the side. So let's see how we can make these. Now I'm gonna try and keep all the tricks inside this video. I don't want to make like 4 or 5 videos for the different wall panels like what we did with the turned legs. So I'm gonna try and keep it short but to the point. So right away I'm gonna start with this one. Now the reason for starting with this one, it's fairly easy to make something like this, and I'll show you exactly how. First of all, I need to get some measurements in. So I'm just gonna go ahead and eyeball it and just call it like 80 centimeters or over 2.5 meters or something like that. It doesn't really matter as I don't have the exact size. So I'm simply gonna go in, take a plane in the front viewport, scroll it downwards, and let's give it a length of maybe 2 meters, 200 centimeters, and let's just make it 1 meter on the width. I'm going to center it because I like working with models that are centered. Alright, now, since what I'm seeing here, I can see that these holes are pretty organic. So I can, straight off the bat, without having to go ahead and use, let's say, trace out these holes and then maybe Boolean them out, I want to go ahead and show you guys how you can achieve a result like that quite easy, and pretty much is going to be very modular way of doing this. So in order for this to work, I'm going to have to increase the number of segments we have in our 20. Well, let's try with 10. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna right click and convert this to an editable poly. Now, before I do this, you need to make sure that you have enough of geometry or close to enough to what you want to achieve. So with this, I have it converted to an editable poly. Now I'm gonna drop down my menu over here, and this is what I'm gonna do. I'm going to go over in edge, and now when I click over here where it says polygon modeling over here, you have this portion here where it says generate topology. Just click it and it's going to open up a new window. Okay, I'm just going to close this. Alright, so with this is basically can help us generate topology from a pre-existing surface. So in this case, I'm going to select one of my edges over here, and here you have procedural maps. So what I want to find is one that's called skin. It's basically this one, skin. So when I click it, you're going to notice that my entire plane is no longer divided into little squares, but instead it has a different texture to it. If I click again, it's going to change it, again, change it. But as you can see, with every time I change it, the resolution is halved. So I'm just gonna Control Z. Again, click. If you like it, then you can accept this. Otherwise, Control Z and click again. It's procedural, so you're gonna get a different result every time. You can play with the size, iteration, and smoothness, but for now, I'm gonna keep this. So here's the interesting part. You can select now all of these. And since if we take a look at this image again, we said it's very organic. So there are no sharp corners. So all I have to do here is I'm gonna go ahead and call it an inset. Make sure that on the inset I have it set by polygon. And now we can see that all the polygons are insetted on their own. So 1 centimeter, okay, why not? Click, and you get something like this. Now, I'm simply going to delete all my center pieces, and this is what I'm left with. If I want this, I can use it like this, or if I wanted to have that smoothness, I can simply apply a turbo smooth modifier to it, and there we go. Right away, off the bat, we get some modular procedural look, which is very, very close to what we have here. So if we take a look at both of them, we can see that we can basically use this on our wall or on our window or whatever you want to use this for. Now, that's for the first part. Now the second one is basically this one. It's same as the first one, but it has a bevel on the inside. So it's not so thin. It has a thickness to it. So for this, I'm gonna go ahead again, create, whoops, wrong one. Make sure you create it in the front. Again, let's make it 200 by 100. I'm going to leave the segments again with the same 20 by 10. I'm going to move it in the middle so we don't have any problems. And then just move it on the side. Alright, so basically here we have two very similar objects. I'm going to convert the second one to an editable poly. And again, click on the skin. It's going to give me this result. So far, we're doing the same exact thing as previously. Again, inset by polygon, click OK. Well, actually, since we have small details like this one, I'm going to decrease this. Instead of 1 centimeter, I'm going to go 0.2, something like this, and click OK. Now, here's the important part. You don't want to skip this one. Since we want to achieve this result, this beveled result, we have to do exactly that. We have to bevel this. So I'm going to go ahead and bevel this inwards for like 3 centimeters. And -1, think it's going to look good. So -1 is okay. I'm going to click. And now I'm going to delete this again. So we are left with this. Now, if I put on a turbo smooth, you basically get something like this. So you don't get that nice transition where you can see this. It's not very well defined. And also we're going to have a problem because we're going to have to go over to 4 iterations, which is going to ramp up your polygons to like almost 1 million, which is not optimum. So let's decrease this to about 2 and then jump down into polygons. Now, all you have to do is while you're here, just put this on the side. While you're here, click on 2, so you enter border, select all of the middle parts. And now if you take a look, you're going to notice that you have selected everything that's in the middle. And all you have to do here is hit connect with 2 segments pinched from each other, something like this. And this should help hold that line over there. Now I'm gonna select my outer border. Simply gonna scale outwards, scale inwards once, something like this, and one more time, just so we have some thickness to the edges. And voila, there we go. We get the similar result as with the previous one or the first one, but in this case we have a nice looking bevel on the sides like this one. So let's continue with our second type. So we basically saw how we can make this and this. Now the next one is this one. If you take a look at it, even though it's a crappy resolution image, we can see that this thing actually has kind of a pattern to it. So let's see if we can find a way to replicate this. So I'm gonna put this on the side so I can see it better. I'm gonna move both of these to the side, and now I'm going to select one of my splines and make a circle. The reason for this is if you look at these shapes, you can basically see a circle here. So let's start from there and see where we get. Alright, so in the middle, I'm going to drop in a circle with a radius of about 10 centimeters, which in turn means that the diameter is 20 centimeters. So I'm going to center to the middle. Alright, now, if we have a diameter of 20 centimeters and we want to get something like this, we basically have to offset this circle for about 70 to 75% to the side. And let me show you how we can do this quite easily. All we have to do is go over to Tools, choose Array, and now in the Array portion here, we have this move pattern here, and here we can basically tell it how much we want to move this and in which axes. Since I want to move it in the X axis, I'm going to go over here, and 75% or 70%, 75% out of 20 centimeters would be something like 15, but I guess let's try with 14. That's like less than 75, so about 70%. 14 centimeters on the X axis. Let's go with, for now, with 5 and preview. Okay, maybe 10. Preview. Awesome. Make sure you leave it at an instance. So whatever we do to the first one, it's going to translate to the second one, or the copies from this one. So click OK. Now select all of these and go Tools. Again, with the Array. This time around though, instead of playing on the X axis, we're going to change this to 0, and we're going to move it upwards on the Y axis. So again, 14 centimeters, preview, click OK. Make sure again it's instance and click OK. And now, if we take a look at this, we're basically getting the same exact shape we have here. Now, since this is all a bunch of lines, we can't use this for our scenes, but the beauty of working with splines is that whenever you go into the modifier and you click on the renderer, you have enable in renderer, enable in viewport. And now you have total control over exactly how thick those lines are. If you want them to be thicker, you can change the thickness here. Or if you want to get a more defined or better defined line of the circle, all you got to do is jump into the interpolation, increase the interpolation to like 9, we get this. So basically with this, we achieved our second type we have here. So since we got that out of the way, I'm going to close this. And I'm going to continue on to the next one. So the next one is probably this one. Now, this one unlike the previous ones, actually has a pattern that we have to stick or abide to it. So I can't go ahead and make something that would be generic. I have to follow this shape. Now, in rare cases like this, you're basically, well, let's just go straight out and say it. You're screwed. This is why. You're gonna have to spend a bit more time trying to trace out the actual frame of the pattern. And it's not hard, but it's time taking. So just so I don't have to go ahead and do it on the video, I went ahead and here I did this. Let's just move all of these on the side. I basically took a plane and I placed the image on the plane. Now, the next thing I did is I made a line. So one here, and I started adding these vertices on the edges. Then I selected all of my vertices and right click and convert it into an Bezier corner. With the conversion, we have basically better control over how this thing is going to look. So I can just move these Bezier corners and get the lines to be in the correct shape. For example, if I look at here, I'm gonna notice that I'm missing something, so just move it like this, and there we go. We get the lines to follow the image in the background. Now, one thing that you should note here is that when you're making something like this, it's going to take time. So be prepared for that. Now, since we have this, I'm going to go ahead and make a plane which should more or less be the size of your wall. It doesn't really matter here. I'm going to decrease the segments like this. And now, here is the interesting part. I'm going to select my lines over here, and in my modifier panel here, I'm going to apply a shell modifier. Well, not actually a shell, but an extrude modifier. Let's see if this is going to work. Yes, it does. So an extrude modifier, just enough so it protrudes through the plane. Now for the plane part, all we got to do is I'm going to put a shell on it so it has some thickness to it. Let's give it like 2 centimeters maybe. This should be enough. And now the easiest part for this would be to go into the compound object, select Pro Boolean or Boolean, really doesn't matter. Since all of these are one object, all I have to do is click start picking and select this. This is what we're gonna end up with. We basically get a panel which has the same exact markings as the image we have here. So since from what I can observe on this image, the edges aren't beveled, but they're rather sharp and they look like they've been carved out of a card box. So this really coincides well with this model. Now, even though I made this half, I really didn't want to continue doing all of this for the sake of showing you guys how to do it. But I'm pretty sure that you can do it without any bigger problems. So for now, I'm going to Control Z. Okay. Delete this. Extrude. Delete. All right. I'm going to go ahead and again hide this, just so it's not in the way. Now, before I jump over to showing you how you can model the, well, basically these ridged walls, I want to show you one more pattern for panels that you're basically going to get to model sometime in the future, hopefully. And that one, or the one that I'm talking about, is basically this pattern over here, the one you can see it over here. I think it's called the optical cube or something corny like that. but I can tell you it's a pain in the ass trying to do that thing. And when I actually first had to do it, I really didn't know how to do it, so I went over and did it the same way I showed you previously. I just tried to like do the actual insets and then cut out the pieces and try to do it with a shell. It worked, but it took a hell of a long time that I could have spent doing something else. Now, I went over on Google. I Googled that thing and I basically found you this image. I think you can see it better so you get some idea on what to expect. Now, how do we make this? Well, when we're in Max, I'm going to show you a trick that you can achieve a result like that in a very, very short time. So all you have to do is, again, select a plane, give it the size that you want your wall to be, and let's go with a 2 meter by 2 meters, so 200 by 200. Give it some segments, 20 by 20. All right, we have this. Now, how do we get this to have the pattern of the optical cubes? Well, again, we're going to use right-click, convert to an editable poly, and again, I'm going to use my topology screen. Here's the thing now. I have to select one of the edges. Like, I have to select one before I start doing this. And once I select one of these, this bottom right option says hive, requires one edge to be selected. So if I have selected this one and click it, I'm going to get something like this. So it's closer to what I want, but still not close enough. Now the interesting part is, once you do this, if you go ahead and now click on this edge direction button over here, you basically get this silly form, which is more or less the optical 3D box. Now, here is the tricky part. You want to close this. If you want to make a wall out of this, first of all, I'm simply gonna rotate, turn off the edge selection. I'm gonna rotate this so you can see it better. All right, something like this. As you can see, we have all the cubes in here, but at the edges, we have something that really doesn't appeal. And if we try to go ahead and multiply this, we're gonna get some problems as the edges will not follow and they're not seamless. So what we can do here is simply go ahead, select all of the edges here, all the polygons on the edge, and delete. Again, select all of these and delete. Now select all the ones from the bottom, and here again all the ones from the top. So with this, now what I can do is with the snap-on, so with the snaps, as you can see here, snap toggle, right click, I have it set on vertex. Now if I hold down shift and move this to the end, we get something like this. Put in 2 copies and we get this result. Alright, so I'm going to select all of them, click, again, move here. And all of them are now tiling perfectly. So I'm going to attach them all. Press 1, select all the vertices, so you can see here, and make sure you weld them with a small amount, just enough so the welds or the vertices that are in the same place can get welded together. Now we have everything looking correctly except these holes in the middle, but that's a very, very, very easy thing to fix. All you have to do is select the border here. Oops. Well, I guess something didn't weld correctly. So let's give it some... Oh, just make sure you don't overdo it, because if you do, we're gonna get some issues with things trying to snap where they shouldn't. Alright, so something like this. Well, I see a problem in the middle. Alright. Well, it doesn't really matter. We just go ahead. Okay. So we have to fix the problem. 31. Select. Alright. Now let's see if we can select all of these. Alright. No more problem. I'm just simply going to cap them, and there we go. We got that form. Now, once we have this, we can extrapolate the form by simply selecting all the edges. Click on Create Shape from Selection. Make sure it's set on linear. Click OK. And if I take it on the side, we basically have this happening. Enabling rendering viewport. Give it some thickness. Let's say 1 centimeter. And you basically end up with this shape. Now, in my case, as you can see in the middle here, I have a problem, but that's basically because when I was pulling it upwards, I guess I mixed up one of these edges, and that's why we have this in the middle. But without it, as you can see, everything looks perfect. Now, let's continue over to the last type, and this is basically when you have wall panels like this. I'm going to try and get this modeled faster so we don't have to make this video any longer than it has to be. So, once you have something like this, you want to model something like this, you don't have to model the entire thing. All you have to do is try to find a single element and see if you can find the said element and see if that element is being multiplied. What this means is, if you take a look at this image, you can basically see these wave-like patterns. But if you take a look at one of these, like just take a look at this one, you're going to see that this one is basically the same as this one, and the same as this one and this one. So all I have to do is just model one of these wave-like shapes. So let's go ahead and try to do something like that. So again, plane. I'm going to go with one by one. I'm going to put it on my other screen so I can see it better for visual representation, so I know what I'm doing. So I'm going to go hit maybe 10 by 200. Okay. Maybe 10 is too little. 20. All right. So with this here, I'm going to go ahead and simply do a bit of modeling. Nothing too fancy. So convert to enable poly. First of all, I want to make one here. So one in the center and move it downwards. So this should help get that effect we have here. So this dip should be this. So the next thing I have to do is define where this lip is going to be. So I'm going to go here with the smooth or the swift loop. If you don't know where to find it, it's over here, right here, swift loop. And just pull it outwards a bit, something like this. Now, if you take a look at this, for now it looks like the V letter. we don't have to be afraid, because now with this we can use this as a base. So let's see what we can find here. We can see that the middle part here is thicker, then it gets thinner at the edges, and then gets thicker at the ends as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and chamfer this, something like this. Okay, and I'm gonna select both of these with the connect. Actually, I'm gonna try and hit the flow connect. This is not gonna disturb the flow, but it's going to add the connects, something like this. And now here is what we're going to do. I'm gonna select this one and hold down this one and simply move them downwards like this. Now what we did here is, with the Swift loop, I'm simply going to add one more on the bottom. What we are doing here is we're preparing to add the turbo smooth. So once we do this and add in a few more iterations, we're going to notice that we're going to start seeing some of that lips or lisp on the, or lip, not lisp, a lip on the model here. Something like this should help it pop up better. Let's give it one more edge so it's holding it in place. And now, there we go. We have this small edge. All right, so now I'm going to select both of these, and since they're not looking like this, it's more like closer to something like this. So turbo smooth again, get a result like this. Now here's the interesting part. If you take a look at the image, let me show you, like this, you can see that this portion of the image, let me just make it bigger. This portion of the image is outwards, while the inner part is more to the, well, the inner part. So in order to make that visible, I'm going to select my bottom edge here, and I'm going to move it upwards a bit, just like this. So with what I've done here is now I'm allowing myself some leniency or some space that I can move this and clone it around. So I'm going to go ahead and try and clone, whoops, before we do it, I'm going to turn off the turbo smooth and then move this upwards like this. Let's give it like, I don't know, 5 copies. Make sure you attach them all. Again, every time you attach, make sure you select all the vertices, weld with a small value, click OK, and see what happens. Once you add the turbo smooth, you basically get this form that you can multiply as many times as you want for your scene. If you take a look at the image, it's close to this, but I'm pretty sure that if you spend a bit more time trying to refine this edge, you're going to get the same result. As for these two small lines, if you want to add something like that, it's very, very easy. All you have to do is select all of these. Now I could have done this on the first one, and once I cloned it around, I could have gotten the same result, but select all of those edges, ring them around, put in 2 connects, because we have 2 of those lines, and now with these 2 lines, simply go ahead and chamfer them, 2, and now select all the middle lines that we made with the chamfer. Whoops. There we go, one by one. And simply just move them outwards like this. Or now come to think of it, I could have just selected all the edges and extruded them outwards, but we're gonna get the same exact thing. So there it is. We have those two little lines. We have this wave looking structure, and we can use this as a wall panel. So I hope you guys liked this video, and also you managed to pick up some new tricks and you managed to learn something new. So if you like it and you would like me to make more, then like, subscribe, comment, share it around so it can reach more people and hopefully help them out the same way it helped you. So take care now, and I'll see you all in the next video.